I'm really excited, and I feel very privileged to have on former NFL running back, author, mentor, entrepreneur, Mr. Prince Daniels Jr. Prince, welcome to Overcome Out Loud, man.
Thank you for allowing me to be here. I'm very grateful for this opportunity and moment.
Yeah, it's such a blessing. And Prince is the creator of the Game Beyond the Game program and the founder of 4LBU, For Life BU, really committed himself to mental health and well being for underprivileged children and adolescents, as well as being a mentor, coach, and trainer through his book, Mindfulness for the Ultimate Athlete, and lives by the slogan, which I love: "Nothing is impossible unless you truly believe it is." And I think impossible has those two key words in there, which is "I'm possible." And we're going to find a lot more about how much you are possible of becoming. And so thank you. I mentioned before we got on how important this episode is to me, because I think, when we see people that have had, kind of dream careers, maybe been a professional athlete like yourself, who was an NFL running back, and I know your path there wasn't what everybody might have thought it might have been, but to be so courageous and speak about some of the challenges you had with your own identity and the tools that you've learned, and now that you're actually teaching to other people, to me, the vulnerability and courage that you epitomize is so important in our lives today and in the world today. So I just, I applaud you personally for what you're doing and how you're doing it, and I'm really excited about learning from you today and having people understand some of the skills and tools you've developed to help yourself, to help others. So we're going to get into it, man. So where did it all start for you, Prince?
Well, it started in Houston, Texas. I was born there. In Mississippi, I lived there for quite some time for most of my adolescent years, and then we moved to back to Houston during my teen years. And I lived with my mother and my stepfather and my siblings all the way up until 13, 14. Then my dad asked my mom, allow for my son to come stay with me. My dad is from another country. He's from Ghana, Africa. So his upbringing was completely different than the one that I was familiar with. And so I got this austere learning of growing up and not having the same rules that a lot of my friends had. It was study, eat, sleep, wake up and study some more. And so I was very athletic, and sports came into the picture later on. But my dad, he stressed, education, education. And from there, I played sports, excelled, had an opportunity to go to a lot of schools, but I didn't do well on the standardized tests. And so the day of signing day, all my scholarships were taken off the table. So I had to figure out what was next.
What was it?
And
What was that like? I mean, I know the and these things, these little uh, kind of moments in our lives are so impactful. I think we ultimately can learn to build on them. But I know, at least for today, I know especially today, I'm sure it was like that for you kids, getting offers and kind of having that dream and then seeing these offers and knowing that academics plays a part in it. You actually were one of those kids who had a good academic discipline. You'd learned to study and you'd been studying, but there was this one part that wasn't there for you, which was those standardized tests, and ultimately that caused what could have been one path for you to reach your dream to become a different path for you to reach your dream. And I think I like to say the man on top of the mountain or woman does not get dropped off by a helicopter. And tell us a little bit about what how that affected you to know that what you'd been working for and studying was now not the path that was going to be laid out for you, and these offers were going to evaporate. And how did that affect you, and what did you do with that information at that young age, Prince?
man, so I was really, I would say I was blessed, just coming into this life, this lifetime. And the reason why is because I had a great supporting cast. My family just always been there, and my foundation. And so growing up, I was very sheltered. As I mentioned, I grew up in Mississippi, and so a lot of the things that happened in Mississippi, I was oblivious to. Kind of naive, which was really a good thing, because there was a lot of racism, you
Right.
know, in Mississippi.
Sure.
but
Yeah.
but I rarely experienced it because it was an unfamiliar it was very unfamiliar to me. And, I would always go home. I mean, go somewhere and then make sure that I come back home. So growing up, not getting a scholarship, it was embarrassing, you know, because I was all academic in high school, all athlete in high school as well, and all of a sudden, I had to take the standardized test, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, this is too long, right? And most of the information on there, I don't remember. I just remember being in the classroom, studying some information, retaining the information to be able to regurgitate it on the test, score the highest grade on the test. There we go. Now on to football practice, right? And so, very embarrassing for me because I didn't sign, and everyone knew that I was going to sign. Had offers from Michigan State, Michigan, Tulane, Purdue, Colgate, Brown, Stanford, Texas, El Paso, just so many schools. And when that opportunity came and went, it was like, man, well, what's next? So I had an opportunity to go to North Texas and get a partial scholarship, but I turned that down because I had a little bit too much fun, and that was my first time. I was 17 years old, and I got drunk, and I just remember saying, "God, if you get me out of this, I'll never do it again," and I never did it again.
You kept your word to God. I know. Having been in recovery now for 13 years, I made a lot of promises to God. I kept breaking, and so and so he kept delivering me a few more lessons in my life until I kept my promises to him. So yeah, I know that story. That morning you woke up down there, and you said, this, and you associated with that experience of being there and what you did, and you said, if I'm going to wake up and make this promise, then I'm going to go somewhere else.
I'm gonna go somewhere else. And so at that time, uh, I remember waking up the next morning and I had to go down and meet the coaches, and I was still in my room, still recovering. And so one of the coaches came and knocked on my door. So I finally came downstairs, and uh, afterwards, I just remember being in a meeting and just saying, "I'm not going here." But I said that internally. I didn't say that out loud. I said that to
Right.
myself. And so as we are going home, my parents they were divorced at this time. So my dad drove up, and I think I drove up with my dad, and I drove home with my mom. And so my mom and I, we were in the car, and I told her, I was like, "Ma, I don't want to go here. I don't want to be here. I got drunk the other night, and I did not like that. I didn't like how I felt. I don't want to stay in Texas. I want to get away. I want to get from underneath your wings, you and my dad wings. I want to grow up. I want to mature, but this is not the place where I want to mature." And so she told me, "Baby, I support your decision." But I live with my dad. So now I go home and I have to tell my dad, my decision. So, I was very strategic about it because my dad is I feared my dad, right? But I loved him at the same time, and I
Yeah.
respected him.
Right.
And so I waited till he went to sleep. He was in the he was in the deep coma to let him know to share the information with him. And it was the middle of the night. He was snoring extremely loud, and it was pitch dark in the house. And I just walked into his room, and I was counting down like 1, 2, 3, dad. And, I finally blurted out, "Dad," and he's like, "Yes." And I told him, and he cursed me a new a-hole, and from there, he told me, nothing in life is free, not even coffee, not even water. And he said, "What's your plan B?" And I'm just like, "Well, I don't have a plan B." He was just like, and I was like, "Maybe go to community college." He was like, "No, hell no. No son of mine will be going to community college." So from there, I really didn't have a plan. I just went back and I just prayed, and just like, well, if something happens, it happens. And from there, um, luckily, as I mentioned before, just out of nowhere, the coach from Georgia Tech, his first year, the recruiting coach, his name was Lance Thompson. Um, uh, he came to recruit another player, a defensive player. This is the Georgia Tech's first year. I never knew anything about Georgia Tech. I was like, Georgia Tech, what is that? So so he came, and my head coach told him, he said, "Hey man, we got a diamond in the rough." He said, "We got this kid is good, great grades, didn't do one on the standardized tests until after the signing day." So he had all these schools offer him. Said, you know, want to check him out and see. So the coach said, "Well, let me see film on him." He saw one film on me where I ran an 80-yard touchdown after I ran someone over and jumped over my fullback. And he was just like, "Let me meet the kid." So at that time, I was out at track practice and I was doing handstands from the crow position, like what they do in yoga. So I was just doing handstands from there and going back down and doing upside down push-ups. And so he came and spoke to me, and he's like, "You know what Georgia Tech is?" And I was just like, "In the state of Atlanta," just super naive, not really understanding, very green. And eventually he gave me a card and he told me to, like, let's see what we can do. So I visited Georgia Tech, had a chance to speak to the coaches, hopefully, in hopes of getting a scholarship if I do good on and off the field. But the only caveat is I need to get accepted into Georgia Tech. So the beautiful thing was I had great grades and I had to write a an essay, a letter, an acceptance letter. And I've never ever in my mind thought that I needed to write a letter to go to school, right?
Yeah.
Because I was an athlete, and in 3 days I had to put one together. So I put one together, and I got accepted to Georgia Tech. So from there, that was my road. It wasn't an ideal road, but it also it gave me, it fueled me to have a chip on my shoulder to be able to commit to what I envision myself to be, and all academic, all conference running back at Georgia Tech and starting running back at Georgia Tech. And little do when you ask for something, you will receive it, but you have to be prepared, whatever may come your way. And so that's how my story began at Georgia Tech, and that was my transition from high school to college.
And look, I think a lot of people, and I think a lot of people have issues with difficult conversations. I imagine I just was envisioning you walking into your dad's room, and again that combination of love and respect, and then getting those words out. But your dad was right. Nothing is free, and you went from, I mean, because you could see for a young man in high school, partial scholarship sounds good, but it wasn't congruent with the way you wanted to live. You had a bunch of ideas that I don't think at the time were so self-aware. I mean, I'm sure as you got into your book and writing mindfulness for the ultimate athlete, you look back at your self-awareness then. You didn't, but you could trust your gut. There was something connecting you to this decision, and your intention was to do something wholesome. And I think as you study mindfulness, these wholesome choices,
Yes.
when I always say we have these two dials, right? There's our beliefs and our behaviors. And for me, a lot of times I wanted people to believe a certain thing about me, but my behaviors, I was more like you, at that recruiting trip, and I kind of kept living that way. And so what I kept getting out of life seemed like I didn't deserve it, or it wasn't what I wanted, but I was the one who was living unwholesome. So you made this wholesome choice based on values that you might not have developed yet, but you knew they were consistent with where you wanted to go. And that's when you can trust the universe. That's when the universe has abundance for you. So it was, I don't want this life. I want to leave the kind of the underpinning of being at my parents' hest, and I want to become an adult. So I think it's important for people to understand that, and maybe you can, as you've grown now, speak to that a little bit about those wholesome choices, and about that wisdom that comes from being wholesome.
Yeah, man, that's beautiful that you say that because um, I was putting up a quote. Um, the reason why I shout boastfully, uh, meditation, practice meditation, meditate, meditate, meditate. Whether people have this preconceived notion of meditation as a religion, or it belongs to Buddhism or Sikhism or whatever other religion that they associate meditation with. Uh, the reason why I say that is because the quote that I have is, the reason why I say meditate is not because I'm looking to be holier than thou. It's because it makes me whole.
Wow.
It makes me whole as a person. And when you have the wholeness, you find peace, within yourself. And so when you mention wholesome, I realized that I've always been on this path, to find myself. And like when I go back and I look at all of my old notebooks that I journaled in, and how I was talking about meditation, and how I would watch all of these kung fu movies and these cartoons, and see people, channeling their inner chi, and Bruce Lee talking about be like water, you know,
Yeah.
it resonated with me like to the core. And I would I would see it in the form of a cartoon. And so when we look at cartoons, we see them as something that's fictitious. And I saw it as like I'm not seeing the cartoon. I'm seeing the message behind the cartoon. And it kept resonating with me. And every time it would resonate with me, I would keep following that same feeling. I have that tingling feeling, all that immense tingling feeling at the crown of my head, and it just ding, and it just run through my whole body. And I was just like, that's it. That's the way. That's the way. And I've always listened to my intuition, and that is what made me wholesome in my process and in my walk. So, this is the reason why I encourage people to practice meditation, because we've normalized so much toxicity in our lives that what, I was just like, I don't give a f anymore. Like, I'm just going to keep screaming it out, because it has saved my life, and it has made me whole and the person that I am today. So uh, I love that you mentioned wholesome, and that's my definition of it.
Yeah, I love that, and we share a common influence. I know George Mumford was instrumental in kind of inspiring for you to write your book, which I think is helping so many people. And he really, for me, he was my kind of teacher to meditation, because I always had, and we'll just segue into meditation for a second, because I think people, at least I did, I had this judgment even around meditation, and it was like, I'm not doing it right, or what is it? And, I'm not levitating, I can't quiet my thoughts. And he was like, no, 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 dude. It's not about quieting your thoughts. It's about realizing that your thoughts are wandering, and just bring yourself back to wherever it is you want your attention to be, like working out a muscle. There's no doing it wrong. It's like, it's the one thing you can't judge. And he always quotes Dr. Dre, I got my mind on my money and my money on my mind. He goes, that's meditation. He goes, wherever your mind is, wherever you, but it freed me up, and I think that's one of the things why I so appreciate people like yourselves. And now my ability to be able to normalize meditation, because we're so apt to, kind of judge ourselves, and think about who we're not, when there's these paths of kind of self-awareness and self-improvement come about, and people hear the word meditation, they think of, pillows on the ground, incense, and some of that stuff is true. But really, if you just get quiet for a second and be mindful of your thoughts, and whether it's awareness of breath or any of the other things, it gives you an ability to be whole again, like you just said so perfectly. And so I'm glad we're talking about meditation, because I think it is a pathway to wholesomeness, and it's a pathway to self-awareness. And so I think, the more people know about it, the more we know, the better we do. And so hopefully, you and I can continue, and George and others that are sharing that, because I know we're going to get into how that served you. But I just couldn't lose that opportunity to see, let people know, because if I'm, when I was out drinking and doing drugs, I couldn't affirm or meditate my, you can't have these conflicts. Your body, the spirit knows that you're out of alignment. And so, you can't affirm, because I would say, I couldn't pass the look in the mirror test. And I think that's, what I appreciate
Wow.
about you at a young man, was that you knew where you wanted to go and how you wanted to get there. And those, I think, are two important things that I think served you well, as we'll get into some of the things that happened to you, because you had a successful career at Georgia Tech. I mean, you were one of the leading rushers there. I mean, maybe third or fourth all-time leading rusher there at Georgia Tech. You had a good, very good, strong collegiate career as a running back in at Georgia Tech.
Yeah, I did. I was a walk on. Started off as a walk on, so I was started off at number 5 on the depth chart to number 7, and from there, I never forget, the offensive coordinator at the time. He was one of the coaches that was in the room for my initial visit at Georgia Tech, and at the time it was Coach O'Leary, George O'Leary, who, man, that individual, he's a tough individual. Really good guy. I saw him some years later, and he congratulated me, on like a job well done. And he remembered me like 20 years later. Well, probably like 15 years later. I'm just like, yeah, you still remember me? He's like, yeah. He said, man, you from Houston, Texas. And he went down the whole list, and he was just like, man, I want to tell you, great job. I was like, wow, from Coach O'Leary. But George O'Leary was there. Bill O'Brien and Lance Thompson were in the room. And so Lance and George O'Leary left, and Bill O'Brien, he became the offensive coordinator at Georgia Tech. And so he had told me, I was number 7 on the depth chart. And he told me on paper, he said, my chances of playing at Georgia Tech are 1 in a million, and my chances of playing in the NFL are 1 in a billion. So he was right. Right. He was right.
So you're saying I got a chance?
It's so funny. It's so funny because I always say that. I'm just like Jim Carrey, Dumb and Dumber. So you're telling me I got a chance, right? And so that's how it was. It wasn't as comical because he was definitely wasn't he wasn't in favor of me. Yeah, just playing at Georgia Tech. He literally told me that I sucked and that I wouldn't amount to too much. If he wanted me to, he can call some of his buddies up at Brown University to see if he can get me in. But I'll never step a foot on the Georgia Tech field unless I play special teams, but not at running back. And so, that was my moment of truth, having to look within the mirror and remember that I had told myself that this was my dream when I first walked on Georgia Tech campus. And this is what I was going to do. I was going to be the starting running back at Georgia Tech, and I was going to be all academic, right? So uh, you have to be mindful of what you ask for, because there are going to be situations in your life that's going to either help fuel you or help deter you away from your goal or your dream. And so after he told me that, there was like a walk of shame leaving his office, and also rage, anger,
Yeah.
right? I'm,
Mm-hmm.
I'm I'm 18, 19 years old, and the only thing that I was saying to myself is just like, why would you talk to me like this? Like, I never did anything to you. You never gave me a playbook. I've always been at a disadvantage. I had to borrow playbooks from the quarterbacks, from one of the third string quarterbacks, just to learn the plays. And so, when he spoke to me in this condescending and be ready manner, I went outside and I just sat at the bus stop. And I just remember tears. A tear came down my face, not a lot of tears, but just a tear came down my face at the bus stop. And this was during spring break, and it seemed like the campus was desolate. The buses, they went double time, meaning they would come every 15 minutes. Now they came every 30 minutes. And so no bus was coming. I was sitting at the bus stop alone with just my backpack, and one of the coaches drove by, and he was just like, hey man, I'm sorry. Keep your head up, P. Because he said, you have what everybody doesn't have. He said, that's heart. So he said, keep your head up and keep your head in it, man. You're gonna get your opportunity. And he drove on by, and I just remember looking at the sky, just like, God, what did I do wrong? And the words that came out of my mouth was, I'm not gonna let anybody steal my dream away from me. It's my motherfucking dream. And I strapped on my backpacks and I took off running to the other side of campus, tears streaming down my face. Then I stopped, went upstairs, took off my backpack, put on my workout clothes, and I started working out for the next 3 hours until I passed out. And from there, he just fueled me, to become the best version, best running back at Georgia Tech. And so in the morning times for the next 3.5 months, I would run to workouts every single morning. My teammates would drive by in the car, and I would just turn down the offer. And I'm just like, I'll see you at workouts. And after workouts, I would run back to the other side of campus, which is about like 1.5 miles, from the athletic center to the dorm room. And I just kept that up. And I didn't allow for someone to tell me what they thought I was going to be. I allowed for myself to remind myself what I said I was going to be. And that was my envision.
That is, and that's, man. I mean, I have to tell you, the we have an inner critic, and sometimes I have a pen here, and I'll send you one because it says on it, "My life, my pen." And for me, Prince, I gave the pen to the story of my life to those coaches, to my dad, to a lot of people that kept writing in the pages of my life, telling me what I was going to become. And unfortunately, I kept reading those pages, and I did become what they told me to be, that I would become, until 2008 was when I finally picked this pen up. I was 42 years old before I picked up the pen. But what I envision you, I mean, if that 18-year-old version of you was sitting on that, you had this pen strongly in your hand, and you said, "Coach is not going to write on the pages of my life. Coach is not going to write the story of Prince Daniels Jr. Prince Daniel Jr.'s is going to write the story of his life, and I don't know where it's going to go, but I'm not going to live the life he told me I would live, man." And I just, I think for everybody listening, to anybody who may want to steal your dreams from you, that you hold firmly on that pen. Yeah.
So so beautiful.
Yeah, well, I'm just drawn to that because of the courage that took. Because, and I don't want to lose sight of the fact that, look, everybody, you didn't have to go get the playbooks. We could be a victim. I mean, everything that we get in life is a function of, if you want to overcome something in your life, you have a bunch of choices. It's like, I was working with a young quarterback, and he made a commitment to read 7 days, right, Prince? And he said, "Well, I went down to see my quarterback coach, and I was with my granddad, so I forgot my book and I couldn't read." And I said, "Oh, really? So there's no Barnes and Noble in Orange County?" It's like, but we don't teach people to think that way. It's like, we're only limited. Nothing is impossible. And you spend all this money on DoorDash, or you spend all this money on Grubhub, but you can't download a book because you said you'd read for 7 days. But that's the power of our perception of what we control, and we have a lot more control. And it's the same thing with you telling those guys, "Drive on by, man. I've got to work out, or I need a playbook, and you're not giving me one." I can either be a victim of that and go, "Oh, no playbook for me. I guess I'm just going to have to kind of do the bet," or I'm going to figure out a way to get a playbook so I can get my reps in. And I think the power of choice is important, and that was not lost on me, because that's what I encourage people to really do, is to look at empowering choices. And you made a bunch of them in that path, and it served you well, right?
It served me well, served me very well, and it makes me proud of my accomplishments. And it I earned the respect of everybody, right? Like, without trying, I was just being myself. I was being that individual that someone told me that I couldn't do something, and I literally lost my mind to find myself, because I would have my headphones on and have a football in my hand and be running around campus, and everyone was just like, "Who is that?" And it's like, "Oh, that's PJ Daniels. He's the running back here." It's like, man, I want to come here because of him. Like, whatever he's doing, I want to do that. And I never knew that I had that much influence on my teammates, but I I I, I had I became in the mind frame of like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, just work so hard that there are no that you leave no room for doubt, for chance. It's just, I'm going to work so hard that once I get my opportunity, I'm never going to look back. Never going to
Wow.
look back. And that's what I did. I just followed my heart. I followed my intuition, my spirit, because your spirit never guides you in the wrong direction. We just suppress it because we enjoy the worldly things, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, but you need to find your balance and your rhythm, because that everything in moderation. And so, but when it's excessive, then we don't get a chance to listen to our true self. And so, I was happy, growing up as being a sheltered child, because it helped mold me into listening to myself, to understanding, like, hey, there's so much more to life, so let's go explore, right? And don't and me not just being a black person, a black male, but I was the guy that would go hang out with the Asian kids and the Hispanics and the other races, because I wanted to bring everybody together. It wasn't about, let me go hang out with my own kind. but I hung out with everyone. And when everyone, I would bring everyone together, like just invite them to my house and cook some food, and like we all get a chance to know each other. And so I became like that was my way of socializing with everyone, just bringing everyone together, and that way we all have a good time, and then everyone can let their guard down and realize like we're all the same. And so that was always been my goal. Like I just had this harder goal, just like, and I always had a smile on my face no matter what, because I was enjoying life, but things started to become a struggle for me, once you go to another level, because there are different levels in life. And so as I graduated to another level, from college to the NFL, a different ball game. And I just kind of segue into that
Yeah,
into
but it's an important segue. And you just brought to my heart a quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson, and he says, "Who you are speaks so loudly, I can't hear a word you're saying." You know how you show up, how you act in this world. You have a lot of people that when I talk, I used to want people to see me a certain way. I'm a good dad because I coach my kids, or I'm a good husband because I provide. But I'm living in this life that was incongruent, and so inside I never, I wanted you to hear who I was, but who I was being was so much louder that it ended up rotting me from the inside. And what you just described, I think, and it's where I am today through self awareness and a lot of inner work is, that congruency, because who you were spoke so loudly. You said you weren't doing it boastfully. That was your true essence. You were who you were, spoke so loudly that you didn't need to tell anybody who you were, because who you were showed up every day, the way you treated people, your sense of inclusion, your sense of hard work, your effort, your dedication, your commitment to yourself. Because I think what I'll just say for myself is, you said you earned the respect of other people, but I think the person who respected you the most was you. When I hear somebody truly look in this camera and say those words, I'm proud of myself, because I couldn't do that for a lot of years. When you can finally do that, man, you can say I was proud of me. The respect that comes from everybody else, it doesn't fuel you. It's who you were that fueled you. And we'll talk about these setbacks, because I think I often introduce people to the most resilient person they're ever going to need to know, and it's actually themselves. And so you did continue to meet some adversity, but you had yourself to go along with you. And so what was that like for you? And I hope you can hear that who you are speaks so loudly, Prince Daniels Jr., that I can't hear a word you're saying, man.
Oh, thank you. This is incredible. This is an incredible interview. I just want to let you know that. So when it came to adversity, I was faced with so much adversity. In college, I was just like, wow, I've overcome adversity. This is the peak, right? And so now it's on to the next chapter and to the NFL.
Yeah.
Get drafted by the Baltimore Ravens, and I'm like, ooh, this is where I, like make my mark. And my career with the Ravens was short lived, 3 years, and but it was an incredible 3 years, because as I mentioned, as you said, right, I respected myself, but I also earned the respect of these high caliber players, these individuals. We had the number one defense in the NFL at the time, and we had a great offense at the time as well, and these coaches and the whole staff. Like I was focused, but my career was hampered by injuries, and also I needed a mentor, because I was different in my mindset and the way that I approached the game. And so the actual the I should I say I needed a more of a, you need a coach, a mentor, and a teacher. I
Yep.
heard I
Yep.
heard I heard Dave Metzler say that the other day. I think that's his name. Um, and I had a coach, uh, I had a teacher, but the mentor, I didn't have a mentor, and so I was trying to figure out, what to do in the NFL, and like how do I act and what do I do? Observe these other players, and I remember watching Jonathan Ogden. He would be reading books and not really engaging with other people. And so when I saw that, I was just like, what? That's what I need to do. So I'm going to start reading books, So I started reading books. I started doing the things that everyone was not doing, right? Because I knew my mindset, and I knew if I keep my mind sharp, the things that I can do would blow others' minds, because I already had the work ethic and the confidence. It was just learning how to strengthen my mind, as well as in like tuning my body to be able to respond to what my mind is saying, telling it what to do. And so like I inhaled the actual playbook after I became a student of the game. One day, I was practicing meditation, but I wasn't fully committed to it until my second year. But during my rookie year, uh, I started I started doing little exercises, and I started studying the playbook more after my coach had chewed me out, Coach Brian Billick. And he had saw something in me. He was just like, like, you have it. But he didn't say it in that manner. He was just like, what the fuck are you doing, PJ? You, you effing up, man. It's like, how you going to run with the ones if you can't even get the plays, against the twos? And all I heard was like, run with the ones? Like, what? So I went home and I studied, I overstudied. And just one day, out of the blue, like everything started pouring into me. I was like, oh, I know what to do here. I know what to do here. You're going to run to the left so much, to the right. These schemes, this throwing, passing, protection, the game started to slow down for me. And I was in meetings answering questions effortlessly that other players had to answer for their position. So I just be like, oh, 7-man turnback protection. And be like, oops, just blurting things out. And so they would kick me out of the meetings. And so, then I would go into the defensive room and just like, what else can I learn? So I started realizing, my ability and my potential. And when it was time for me to display all of these skills that I've started to hone in, uh, uh, I would get injured. And I was just like, what's going on? So for me, that was like an emotional breakdown in my game plan. And from there, I had the next year, I had to fight again to get into my position and get to where I wanted to be. And so instead of learning how to gear it down and then turn it on, I was just on, because I was just angry because I wasn't able to contribute, and I needed a mentor to help me, massage my way of thinking and help me with my emotional intelligence and how I was processing things, because I thought everyone was against me. And so when I felt like everyone was against me, I started going into this phase of like of anger and threats and like just wanting to hurt people. Right,
Yeah.
I'm already in a violent sport, but like it exasperated, my thought process exasperated the way that I wanted to approach it. And I wanted like, as you mentioned, I wanted everybody to see, like I'm serious about this. I'm so serious about this. I don't mind killing you, and I don't mind killing myself. That was my thought process. And that was like the first stage to like, depression. So my career ended. I had an injury. It wasn't career ending injury, but after being injured consecutive years, uh, um, on paper, it looks like I was injury prone. And when I did get my next opportunity, when I was in shock once I was released from the Ravens, that they wasn't going to tenure me for another year. So I really did my reaction was don't do anything at all. And so when I did get my next opportunity, I wasn't prepared. And then I started working harder after I wasn't prepared, and and the next opportunity never came. So from there, I'm just working blindly and extremely hard, and with nothing uh, in return, with no results, nothing. So I started firing my agent, then trying to get another one, and then it went to a point where they was just like they consider me as a street athlete, and they don't take these agents don't take people off the streets. right? And represent them. So I just found myself in a conundrum. So now it's just like, man, after working out for one whole year and no phone calls, uh, um, that's when the self identity crisis hit me hard. It's just like, well, who am I? Right. And then from who am I, like, what like, why am I working out like this? Like, I could be using my brain more. Like, why, why am I doing this to myself? And then it went from that to like, dang, you let yourself down. You let your family down. Like, you lost your job. Like, who are you? Like, you're embarrassed. You back at home now? This wasn't the way that your story is supposed to be written. You were supposed to be one of the number one running back in the NFL. Like, you have all the skills, you develop all the skills. You went from a 4.5 to a 4.2 in 6 weeks. Uh, they switch you to new positions as well. From they added new positions for you, from running back to playing wide receiver now, and doing the little H backs. So now they see your skill level. So now you are filling a position for 2 to 3 people. So now the coaches, they can get rid of these people because of you, because of your contribution, because of you being a utility player. So I had all this in my head, and
Wow.
it just boom, just went away. They even like on my third year, they offered me a contract. Like, and I haven't even played it down. All right. But they just saw the progression and the spirit of, like, no one can stop me when I put all this together. The mental part came of understanding the game, having high IQ for the game, and then I was able to bring the physical part together. And I was just like, wow, I could do so much more. And they just saw the confidence level. I was operating at a level of supreme confidence. And once the opportunity went away, that's when everything hit, and it was like a snowball effect, like boom, boom, boom. And from there, like, the depression hit so hard that I did not know what to do. I knew it was coming because I could feel it, because it seemed like it was nothing that I could do. It's like, oh, like when you're about to fall, and just like, just surrender to the fall. That's what I was doing. And I was pushing everybody that I loved away from me, because I knew that this was going to happen, and I was going to be in a really dark place. Yeah, that's how it happened. And then from there,
Wow.
you know,
That's a dark spot. I mean, and I can't help but look back and at some point, it felt like, and as you were talking about it, Prince, it felt like you lost yourself a little bit. It felt like you got caught up in something. I don't know how to describe it, and I know you'll probably, with your awareness today, be able to look back and describe it. But because that violent anger, that rage, that wasn't the fuel that I heard at Georgia Tech. What I heard at Georgia Tech was, I'm going to prove my dream to me. I'm not going to let somebody else dictate my dream. And I know the things that I got to do it has to do with me, not everybody else. But something turned in you a little bit. Like I think, in mindfulness, and sometimes in Buddhist, they talk about the hindrances, that you started to get that anger, that victim, that, I got something to prove, and I'm going to ram it down your throat, as opposed to just going inside and being my best self. It just seemed like there was a loss of your truth. That heart you talked about seemed like a little bit, that you lost it for a little while there. Is that accurate?
that's super accurate. And that's why I needed a mentor,
Yeah.
right? Because my emotional intelligence was just out of whack. And when I'm in the big man's world, I'm in a business now, right? When at first I had love for the game in college, but then once you go into the business side of things, there are not many mentors there. They're coaches and they're teachers, and you can learn from yourself. You can become your own teacher, but the mentor side of things, where someone's able to see, like, oh, okay, you just need just a little bit of mentor and a little direction, and you're going to be incredible. Because the heart was still there, the
Yep.
tenacity, the focus was there. It was just, it wasn't directed in a manner of, like, hey, this is what you need to do. You need to stop doing that. You need to, just stay focused on this, and I guarantee you it'll work out. And and my cousin, um my cousin, who was the quarterback at the time, Steve McNair. Steve McNair,
Oh yeah, for sure.
yeah, he talked to me, And he told me, he's like, "You're gonna be all right." He's like, "You're gonna be all right, because and you know, shortly after that, he passed, and I'm just like, dang, what, like, what's next?
Yeah,
Like, what's going on? I was just trying to figure out things, just trying to handle it all and juggle it, and I didn't really have anybody to come in and say, "Hey, you don't have to juggle everything. Just find, what you're good at and balance that, and then take it from there. Just take it easy. It's okay to slow down. It's okay to gear it down. You don't have to go so hard every single day." And that was the mindset. Just power through everything, and that's why in my book I talk about mastering the balance between power and peace, because I was trying to be, Mr. Power,
yeah,
and that created that caused destruction in my life, you know. But once you find your peace, you become extremely powerful. But we're not taught that. We're taught the total opposite, right? And so it was later on in my life when I found the peace. But for me, man, after being let go and sitting with my own thoughts, and all my thoughts were debilitating, I was like, okay, I don't want to deal with this no more. I'm ready to just end it all and just kill myself. And so I put together a 3-day plan for my demise. And afterwards, on the last day, I called 7 people, exactly 7 people. And it wasn't in the plan, but I was just like, I'm just going to call these individuals. And the first 6 people, they didn't tell me anything that I wanted to hear. I was just listening to them. And I remember I called one of my teammates, and when I called him, it jolts me out of my depression, right? But then when the conversation was very short, I was like, oh man, what happened? Then I went back to being depressed again. Because he was just like, man, it's so great to hear your voice, man. I love you, bro. I gotta go to practice.
oh
And,
yeah,
and he was in a place where I wanted to be, where I was longing to be, right? I was still thinking about something in the past, and I was in the present moment. And he didn't know that I had suicidal thoughts, ideation all day long, and I was attempting to commit suicide. And so the seventh individual that I called was, because I went to the monastery, and I went to the monastery my second year going into the league. And the reason why is because I was ready to zen out and separate myself from the competition. I wanted to be the elite of the elite. And that was my initial reason to go into the monastery, because all the movies that I mentioned earlier, like, this is what I want to do. I was like, I'm going to hone in, and I'm going to show people that I'm one of the greatest running backs. And uh luckily, to it was on purpose. Which is a beautiful thing, because after football was over, I still had this cantankerous energy. I still had this volatile energy and mindset. And you cannot just go out into public, but once you're a professional athlete, to being a civilian and uh, replicate some of the actions that you committed on the football field or that platform, because there'll be consequences
yeah,
and you'll find yourself in jail. And so I had to figure out a way how to channel all of this energy, this energy, this cantankerous energy, and learn how to let my ego go. And that was like very difficult. And that was a difficult process for me. So I called the seventh individual, and all 7 people did not say what I wanted to hear. And I don't even know what I wanted to hear.
right.
But the seventh person, you know, said to me after I opened up, because I knew this is my last lifeline. And I opened up and I said, I lost my job, I lost my woman, I lost my car, I lost this, and I'm losing my mind, and I don't want to be here anymore, and I'm tired of this. I'm tired of feeling how I'm feeling. Like, I feel sick right now, and I just want to. I said I want to kill myself. I said, matter of fact, I'm going to kill myself, and that's how the conversation went. And after I said I'm going to kill myself, it was a pause,
Hmm.
and he said, "Are you done?" And at that moment, I felt myself exhale, like,
Yeah,
huh? you just minimize every single thing that I just said. You know, even though I created drama, right? He just minimized everything I said, and it's like, meditate. You get what you are, you get what you pay for. Meditate, and hung up the phone. And I was like, oh, I'm about to lose it. I'm about to go and kill myself. You know, and the crazy thing was, I had already set up my gun and put my bullets in it. And this was day 3. And I prepped myself for day 1 and day 2 of how I was going to do it. I was pulling the trigger on myself, putting the gun underneath my chin, pulling the trigger on myself, and then embodying that feeling. Like, this is cool, and this is what I'm going to do, and this is what I'm going to commit to. You know, I've committed to so many other things in my life. Like, this is how I'm going to commit to this. And as I'm going into my room, to my right is my closet, is where I set up everything, and that's where my bathroom is. So my closet is behind my bathroom. And to my left is my meditation area, you know, where I sit and meditate. And man, Charlie, I look to my left and I see my meditation pillow, and there's a little light beaming on my damn meditation pillow. And because once I got off the phone, I was just like, how the fuck is meditation going to save me in this crisis that
That's right.
I'm in? Like, what the fuck? You know, like, why did I call him? You know, see, the thing was, he didn't tell me what I wanted to hear, but he disrupted my thought process. And he said he injected meditation. I'm just like, what is meditation going to do? Like, how does this help? I was like, this I don't see how this is going to help me at all. But you know what? I was just like, okay, I'm gonna go and do this. I'm gonna commit to 1 hour of doing this, and if nothing happens, I'm going to blow my head off. And I just remember, like, my eyes watering up, and I went and sat down, and I chose sitting down on the meditation pillow. And so when I sat down, this was the one meditation where so much happened. And I learned so much about myself through this one particular meditation. One, my posture. I could not maintain my posture. I was slouching to the left, to the right, you know, forward, backwards. Everything in my body was aching. And what that told me was that I wasn't able to support my own self. And also that I was in pain. I was aching. So I could hear my thoughts. You're not enough. You embarrass yourself. Like, man, you lost your job. Like, you embarrass your family. Like, who are you? Like, you're dumb. Just all of these things running through my mind. And I started sweating, you know, just I'm fighting. I'm just fighting with myself. I didn't like myself. I couldn't stand myself. I committed to something, and it fell through, and I wasn't able to carry out that commitment. And so, but the one thing that I did do, I kept telling myself, because it was a part of me saying, "Get up, just get the fuck up, and just go and do it." But there was another part of me that said, "I committed to 1 hour. You sit here for this whole hour, and if something happens, then you know I'll be a believer. But if nothing happens, let's go end this right now." So I'm struggling,
Yeah.
and around 40 minutes, everything in my body starts to hurt. I'm like, what the fuck? Just like, man, get up, just get up. And I'm fighting through the pain. I'm sweating. Just like, man, why do I even have my legs in this crisscross position? Like, I got these big thighs. Like, what am I doing to myself? I'm trying to torture myself, right? And I never forget. I opened my eyes, and I remember sweat dripped in my face. And I looked at my timer, and it said 50. It was 57 minutes had passed, so it was 3 more minutes left. And I was just like, shit, you know, all this pain. And I remember taking a huge inhale. I'm just like, just let it go. And from that moment, I had been struggling with my posture and my legs crossed. And at that moment, my whole body went limp after I took that last inhale. And my knees, the outside of my knees hit the ground like boop. And when it touched the ground, the energy from inside of my body just shot into my head. And it was just like, and I remember saying to myself, like, man, where am I? Like, shit, why is it quiet in here? Why is it so quiet in here? And there were three questions that my higher self had asked me, right? And it was just the same question. What are you doing? I mean, what are you doing? I was just like, I'm about to kill myself. And that was the energy, and that was the action that I had. And asked the same question again. I was just like, I'm about to do it, right? And what I realized that there was a correlation between the first 2 days of my planning of my demise, the preparation. And then the third day, the third time they asked me the same question, my answer slowed down. It was like, I'm about to kill myself. What? And then the timer went off like ding, ding, ding. And it sucked me out of that space just like that quick. I was like, whoop, 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 whoop. Right? And then tears started coming down my face. And I was like, what was that? I was like, what was that? What was that? Like, what was that? Like, that was outside of me. Like, what was that? So my tears streamed down my face, and I'm just like, whatever that was, I want that for the rest of my life. Like, I want that. Like that touched me. That for the first time, I saw me. Right, and I was just like, that's it. That's it. That's it. And I never thought about harming myself from that moment, Charlie. And I was just like, this is it. And that's when I knew, like, there's something to this meditation that's far beyond that our minds can fathom. And ever since then, I just became a student of life and
It
meditation. And
it literally saved your life, dude. I mean, you can see I'm emotional. I mean, I have some history with sibling suicide, and I know the effects of people taking their life. And your story just hit me so hard. And man, you said that no one was telling you what you wanted to hear, but I got to tell you, that seventh phone call told you everything you needed to hear. Because, when I kind of envisioned those two rooms and those two opportunities, and if you didn't hear meditation, I don't know that you see that light. I don't know that you see that room. And so thank God for that dude, whoever that was, because man, we needed to hear meditation, and you got inside yourself, and that was the beginning. And yeah, what you wanted to hear is you're going to get the girl back. The team's going to want you. What you wanted to hear was.
that's what I wanted to hear.
I know.
That's exactly what I wanted to hear. Like, you don't worry, you're gonna prevail. Everything's gonna be all right. It's gonna change tomorrow by next week. Just have faith. And that is, I heard total opposite. Like, I didn't hear any of that. Everyone was just saying, "Oh, it's gonna be all right." I call my professor. He was just like, "Oh, don't worry about it. You're good. How old are you right now?" It's like 26, 27. He was just like, "Oh man," he said, I filed for bankruptcy at 33," and I was just like, "What the fuck?" Like, why are you telling me this? But he didn't know my condition and my situation, and so, like, that seventh phone call was the Herod Master Monk at the monastery. So I didn't know who else to call.
Yeah, and you found what you needed. And this is what's so important to this podcast, to this episode, and to the life you and I live. Everything you had needed to survive this obstacle in your life was inside of you. Everything you needed was right there at your knees, at your fingertips, in your vibration. Everything you needed was, you just needed to take a second to find it.
To take a second and find it. And we don't do that because we are so conditioned and enamored to the rat race, or to just maintaining pace, keeping up with the Joneses, doing what the next person does. Monkey see, monkey do. Like, this is the way to go. And we're afraid to go against the grain.
Yeah, and your thoughts had become so ruminating. I mean, your thoughts. I mean, I can hear it because I can see it because I've been in that that kind of rumination before, where it doesn't seem that negative, that critics like just dumping it on, right? It's like expansion theory says what we focus on expands. So it's like you tell me you're not good enough, and I'm going to show you all the reasons why you're not good enough. Stuff you didn't even think about, the girl in high school and everything. You're going to get it all right now, man. If you want, if you want to open this book, I got plenty to share with you. And so it defies logic that we'll sit down and get quiet to try and quiet that inner critic, and that the peace, the calm is actually the way out. It seems counterintuitive. It's like I need more noise. I want a distraction, right? I mean, I think that's
Right.
kind of what you and I and most people were trained is, whether it's drugs or alcohol or football or anger, or, we want a distraction. We don't want to get quiet and go within, but that's
Right.
really where the answer is. Is that right?
That is so right. That is 100% right. That is so accurate. That is quantum physically accurate.
Oh wow! I got to tell you, man, I'm just gonna thank God for this day and thank God for that call and when I see that smile on your face, Prince, when I see that heart that lives inside of you, and I see what you're doing today, man, the way out is through.
That's, oof, the way out is through. That's so right, Charlie. So right. The way out is through.
Well, and I think one of the things that as we get into this, Prince, is that last phone call is where you really dumped it all. I mean,
Yeah.
you really gave. You were very clear. I'm not just in a bad place. I'm not just depressed. I'm like,
Yeah.
man, I'm going to get honest with somebody, and I'm going to tell them how bad it really is. And I think, I think in terms of messages for people that are suffering, you know, become vulnerable. Please tell somebody what's really going on. We don't need to be imposters. We don't need to wear a mask, and
Right.
and when you do, you'll get an answer. You really will.
Right. Right. Oh, right. Well, I mean, you have the remedy to to all of this, and I do as well. Through my story, but it's because we experienced it, we lived through it, and so we live to speak about it, to help people, other people heal, and I think that's incredible. So I love that you are aware of your gift and that you're present, because just you being present is a gift in itself. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, for sure. And so we're, I want to get now into because, obviously you've turned things completely around. I mean, that plan, that failed plan was one of the best failed plans I've ever fucking read about because I got to tell you what you're doing today is incredible. And so can you talk a little bit because I know it wasn't I mean, I know you didn't walk out of that room and all that was gone, but you walked out of that room a different man and decided to do different things. And what were some of the things and what are the things that you would recommend in terms of routine and practices that really helped you stay on the path to going from the darkest place one could imagine of suicide to such a purposeful and thriving life. What's that path been like for you? What's some of the kind of principles that you've built into your routine now that you and the principles that you're so kind to teach other people?
Man, that's a great question. Again, this is one of the best best interviews that I've ever had. And it was maintaining that practice. Committing to maintaining that practice. I said that is something that I want to chase for the rest of my life, right? Or just be in the presence and merge with that light, that moment of clarity, that moment of peace. And so my activity was just be consistent in practicing my meditation, like every day. Like that's something that I do. Like I never stop doing. Like the more you do it, the more you realize like this is the way. This is it. Like just continue to keep doing this, and you will come into alignment with everything that you've ever imagined. And so I do that. I make sure I'm constantly drinking water. And the reason why that's so important because water is a healing element,
That's right.
and all the way down to your cellular level, to the molecular level, right? And we have a, a strong impact on on the way that our water is consumed. Whether if we have negative vibes, we're going to have some negative water. But if we have positive vibes, that's going to impact the water that we drink. And so that's the reason why I drink water. And and just remembering to be flexible. My meditation creates my anchor for the day and for life. But when you think of an anchor, you think of a ship. That's the first thing that comes to mind. And so when you think about when a ship drops its anchor underwater, the anchor doesn't stake the ship in the ground. Um, the anchor, connects with the ground, but it doesn't stop the ship from floating, right?
Yeah, that's
And
so
yeah,
true.
and so throughout our day, we are constantly hit with waves of negativity and waves of just adversity. And so, the ship has to continue to float even though that is anchored, but it doesn't move. It's not moved, right? But it's constantly floating. And so you have to be able to float and flow throughout your day. And so just being flexible with yourself, not being so hard on yourself, loving yourself. Because if you don't love you first, how do you expect to give love to other people? Like, the reason why there's so many divorce rates is because you get into the divorce not knowing who you are, first and foremost. Because the minute when there's a reflection of you and you're like, whoa, I don't like that person, you become a victim, and then you blame the other person, like, I'm getting out of here, I'm leaving, because you don't know yourself, you don't know who you are. But really what they're saying is, that's me, I don't know who I am. But I'm gonna put the blame on you, and I'm gonna walk away from this. I'm gonna feel so much better about myself because it's you're toxic, right? And the reason why is because we haven't had a chance to spend time with ourselves. So um, once you spend time with yourself, then it's easy for you to spend time with other people. If you have money and someone asks you for money, and you have the money to give to them, you will give to them in the most generous way possible. But if someone asks you for money and you don't have any money, you're gonna feel bad for not being able to give them money. So now you created your own problems because you're feeling bad about not being able to give someone else some money. So the only way that you'll be able to give some money is if you have some money yourself. So that way you don't lose your happiness, but you feel grateful for being able to give something because you could be on the other end of the stick. So if people keep that same mindset and understand you got to give yourself love first before you can love someone else, then this world will be a better place. And these are a lot of the things that I do consistently. So that's why I smile so big. I smile from the heart, because it's my spirit that people connect with, and I realize that we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And so when I learn how to tap into my inner spirit, which is our in spirit, it's the root word. Those two words are the root words for inspiration. So I use my in spirit to inspire other spiritual people. So when I speak to people, I make sure that you know, when I speak to people, a lot of things that I say go over their head, but it wasn't intended for their mind. It was intended for their heart, which is where
Ah,
the heart is the house of the soul. The heart is the house of the spirit, right? So I'm constantly speaking to your spirit, and that's because I want you to feel what I'm saying, not hear it and then try to process it and then be like, oh, okay, well, that's his opinion. No, because I'm not giving my opinion. If that's the case, then I need to stop talking, because what they say, opinions are like assholes. So who gives this,
yeah, yeah. We all got one, and no one gives a shit. Yeah,
right? Right, exactly. So I make sure that I understand that words are very powerful, and the words that we use can either hinder someone or help them enrich their lives. And so um, just make sure that I positivity, it drives me, and I'm inspired by me. To be completely honest, someone asked me the other day, like, who are you inspired by? I was like, me. I said,
that's right.
and the
And that's
reason,
right.
yes, and the reason why is because I spent enough time to see how incredible I am, right? And I was just like, wow, this is me. This is who I am. But you have to kind of create that space so you can see yourself. Because when you are this close to something, how can you see anything else? All you can see is what's in your view outside of you, but once you create space where you can see yourself from like a third person view, it's like, hey, wow, that's a cool individual, or like, wow, this is what God made us to be. And it's like, wow, like I'm doing these things. I'm looking to enrich people's lives. I'm looking to enrich athletes' lives so they don't have to go through the same thing that I went through. I'm making sure that I make an impact on people when I meet them, but remind people that there's something inside of you that you have not tapped into. But the minute you tap into it, you'll realize, wow, there's a light inside of me. Wow, I have energy. Wow, I'm tapping into my inner G, my INNER capital G, my inner good, my inner genius, my inner God, my inner goddess, my inner greatness, and my inner GPS, the thing that will not allow, it'll navigate you throughout life, whenever you get lost. And so, uh, man, it's been a blessing to be able to be a part of a monastery, go live at a monastery and learn this. And I would go to the monastery and go in the library and just pull out books from like the 1600s and read them and see what they were talking about meditation and contemplation. And I would just sit there and cry because I'm like, I'm reading this. Like, I'm reading this. Like, wow, I'm storing this information. I'm channeling this energy, this information from the 1600s into my present life. Like, wow, like this is a gift. This is amazing. And I, so much gratitude was in that, which allowed for me to embody it and just be like, you know what, this is me, this is who I am, this is the life that I'm living at this moment in time. So live into the wholesome part of it, into the fullness of it, and make an impact. I'm not looking to make an impact um in an egotistical way. I'm looking to make an impact in a way to help, to make sure that we realize like our true power, right? And it comes from our peace. Again, meditation doesn't, just because I practice meditation and I spent time at a monastery, and people call me half human, half monk, doesn't mean that I'm holier than thou. It just makes me whole.
That's
And
right.
with me being whole, I find peace. And when I find peace, like it's like I have true power. And now it's like, all right, now that I have this power, like you guys, you got it too. Let me show you the way. And that's my walk. And that's what's in my heart. And that's what I live every single day. And just remind people like you are incredible. Like, but stop telling yourself that you're not.
Wow. I got to tell you that I'll wrap up with who you are. Speak so loudly I can't hear words you're saying, man. You've changed lives. I feel so privileged to have shared this story with you, man. And yeah, listen, get some anchoring statements, folks. Some things that you can believe about yourself when the storm comes. Get some anchoring mindset ideas. Things you'll tell yourself when that inner critic chirms up. Be where your feet are. Just look down and say, I'm here. I'm right here right now. Get some anchoring visualization things you can do. I love that you talked about the power of anchoring ourselves. And you're right. When we see the inner resources we need, and the fact that we have everything that we need right inside of us. I mean, sure, you did play at Georgia. You were one in a million, and you did play in the NFL. You are one in a billion. But actually, you're one, man. There's no other Prince Daniels Jr. and there is no other Charlie Smith, and we just got to be the best version of ourselves every day. And when we do that, there's a light that we don't need to we don't have to turn the light up or down. It's just there.
It's just there.
Yeah, man. Well, I got a big overcome out loud bear hug waiting to give you when we can finally see each other down there. And I just, again, from the bottom of my heart, Prince, it's beyond what I could have imagined getting to spend time with you. Thank you for your courage, your vulnerability, and for overcoming out loud.
Man, thank you for this opportunity. I'm so grateful. Like, thank you for being you. I was excited, but now I'm elated,
Yeah.
just to talk to you. Like, but man, thank you for this platform, your heart, your spirit, your presence. It is a gift. and just seeing your light and being able to share that and spread that with other individuals as well, so we can all um, heal each other with spreading our light around the world.
Yeah, I hope we can do something together. And can you just real quick? Can you? I know everyone's going to want to be able to connect with you. Can you just give people, and we'll put it in the show notes, but how people can find you, connect with you, where what your platform is, so people can continue to hear your inspiring message and be part of what you're doing, especially with your Game Beyond the Game program, which I'm a big fan of.
Yes. Most definitely. Thank you. Most definitely. You can find me at princedanielsjr.com. And you can also find me on social media. You can also find all my social media stuff on my website. But Prince Daniels, uh, PrinceDanielsJR.com. I'm also on Instagram at PrinceADJR. I have a podcast called The Prince Daniels Jr. Show, where just I speak to incredible individuals, but also have monologues where I just talk about life and just talk about things that are on my mind, and how to be able to create a different vantage point in life, to see things completely different. So that way you can use higher level thoughts to overcome your situation. And talk about my course that I have. It's called Unlocking Your Peak Performance. And I think that's pretty much it. Like, you can find me on YouTube. I'm doing some stuff on YouTube as
Great.
well.
Yeah.
And my book, Mindfulness for the Ultimate Athlete, Mastering the Balance Between Power and Peace. You can find it on Amazon.com. Yeah, and so yeah, I'm just here to just continue to keep spreading love and spreading positivity, but not really doing that, but just being myself,
That's it.
and I just enjoy being me. I really do, And first, I used to be apologetic about it, but now I'm just like so unapologetic. I'm just like, just be you, and the inspiration, it comes. Uh, it's funny. My wife was always like, how do you do this? Like, how do you commit to like getting up every single morning? And, like, we went to bed at 3 o'clock last night watching TV. Just like, it's like, it's just in me, just get up and do it. I said, no matter what I do, I still have to clean my slate,
Yep.
and create space for me, because yeah, it's a new day. The sun just rose, but after I practice meditation, I feel energized. So, like, how can I not go back to that? Like, it gives me my energy. That is my natural coffee, caffeine, whatever you want to call it, my tea. Like, it just wakes me up, and I'm just like, all right, all right. I didn't know I didn't get that much sleep, but I just did some meditation. Still, let's go ahead and operate and do what we need to do. Whenever I get an opportunity, I can go and rest and take a nap. Right, but for the most part, you can find me on all these platforms, and
That's awesome. I was gonna end, but I hope you'll take one more second because you've brought it up so much, and I know people struggle. Could you give people kind of, and I know you've got lots of content about it, but just a little intro just to your perspective for people that may struggle with meditation, that may not understand, the concept of meditating. If you could just maybe take, before we wrap up, just a second to put some people at ease and help people understand a little bit how that practice works, and how someone could start who feels intimidated as I was, having these images of needing to go to a monastery or needing these higher, experiences. But it's really, as you found out on that fateful day, it's not about any of that. It's about just connecting. So maybe, if you don't mind, Prince, could you just kind of just give kind of the people that may not understand or be intimidated by the concept of meditation, just your introductory kind of insight into how someone could get started with a meditation practice, man?
absolutely,
Thanks.
absolutely. So meditation is not a religion. It's not a philosophy. It's not a religion doctrine. So it's not a change of your lifestyle as well. Um, so first and foremost, just understand that, because once you understand that, then you understand what it is. Second, it's a practice that allows you to access a high level of focus, awareness, compassion, kindness, concentration, all of the above, and this exists in every single individual in the world at all times. It doesn't cost you any money to close your eyes.
Mm.
The next thing is the whole notion of clearing your mind. If you clear your mind, that means you're dead.
Thank you.
So get that out of your head that you have to clear your mind, because you don't. There's no way that you can clear your mind when you've been conditioned to think up until this point in your life. When you practice your meditation, it's about observation of the self, right? Our natural self is to observe. When we're kids, we come into this world, we observe our parents and how to act and how to talk and walk and do these things. And so when you learn how to sit and close your eyes, you observe your behavior. You observe what your thoughts are, what you've been influenced by. And once you come to the realization of this is me, you know what? This is not how I envision myself to be. This is not what I want. The minute you realize what you don't want, you realize what you do want. And that right there creates a level of awareness that allows for you to follow the path of your envision, which I say EV, and not your television, which is your TV, which is telling you a vision of what you think you should be. So the last thing with meditation, when you really sit and practice meditation over and over again, you're refining your heart. You're refining your ability to love yourself, to enjoy yourself, and to realize that how you were made perfectly in this divine order of the universe. And it may be like grandiose, right, when I explain that, but think of it on the micro level. Like just learning how to accept yourself for who you are, whether you are healthy or not healthy. Just appreciating that one simple thing allows for you to be able to live life a little bit more effortlessly. And that's a gift in itself.
Wow. And there we go, folks. Prince, man, it's like I said, it's been a pleasure. That was exactly what the doctor ordered, and in terms of meditation, I think people will get a lot out of that and not be intimidated. Thank you for clarifying. It's about observing those thoughts and not getting rid of them, because we are humans, and we just be aware of what's going on, and not try to control it, and not judge it. So our lives are better today for this man, and we'll look forward to catching up with you really soon.
Thank you so much, Charlie.
Thank you, sir.